Hello?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear us?
Good.
Yeah, thank you. That was a mystery that we still don't.
No problem.
No, I just received that link.
That's for Steve.
The link in the agenda works. The link on the village does not.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Michael, there's some confusion over which link works. So.
Yeah. No sweat. Anyway, I see the screen. I don't see any of you, but I hear you, so that's fine.
Video's up, you know. Oh, okay, so Michael, you're not going to see us as long as we're screen sharing.
Yeah, that's fine.
I wrote to Valerie a while ago that I cannot get in, but now Zoom got me in.
Okay, great. Hi, Misha. Good evening.
No sweat. Anyway, I see the screen. I don't see any of you, but I hear you, so that's fine.
Video's up. That's weird. Okay, so Michael, you're not going to see us as long as we're screen sharing.
Yeah, that's fine.
I wrote to Valerie a while ago that I cannot get in, but now Zoom got me in.
Okay, great. Hi, Misha.
Hello.
I didn't connect.
I don't see any of you.
My Zoom is not connected.
I never tried to get in. You're not going to see us as long as you're screen sharing.
Yeah, that's fine. I wrote to Valerie a while ago that I cannot get in, but now.
Hello.
This shot. Michael, can you hear us?
Now I hear you fine, and I can see your little.
Looks like we're good. I'm so sorry. This is a whole new set of obstacles.
Yeah, no,
Listen, I
it's
think-
fine.
I think we're going. The only thing I can suggest, George, is do you have a way to send the agenda over?
Tried to log on to the agenda. Couldn't get on either way.
Either way.
Yeah, I was successful only when I used the link from the agenda on the village's website.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah. Clearly it worked for Misha as well.
Okay.
If that fails, then maybe you could just call him and, you know,
Let's try that.
try that. But it'd be best if he could get a visual. Everybody, in the meantime, I think I'm going to open the meeting.
I actually have a link. I can email him. if you want.
Yeah, that's great, Steve.
All right.
Meantime, everybody, I'm going to open this meeting of the Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Commission here in the Village of New Paltz, February 13th, 2023. After a couple of technical hitches, we are opening the meeting at 7:14 p.m. The first item on our agenda is approval of the January 9th minutes. Did anybody want to suggest an amendment to the minutes? I've been through them. Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Commission here in the
If I may say, you have an echo. Everything you say is repeated in the background.
We are opening the meeting at 7. We're getting it as well, Misha.
Oh, you too.
The first item on our agenda is approval of the January. This is going to be really fun. I don't know what else to do. It's probably dangerous, Val, for you to log out and log back in the meeting because we could lose everybody who got in. Ed's ready to get in. There you go. That was from 5 minutes. Got a ghost in the machine, I think is my conclusion.
I made it.
Ed, welcome to our meeting. I'm sorry, we're having really A-level technical problems, but you can hear me right now. Is that correct?
I can hear you. I can see the screen as well. Thank you.
Perfect. I think what you're going to experience is in a minute or so, there's going to be a lag and you're going to hear that same thing again, but we don't know how to prevent it. So maybe we'll choose our words very carefully this evening.
Nope.
Commissioners, is there a motion to approve minutes as submitted? Oh, moved, seconded, all in favor? So Val, that's recorded as fully accepted. Thank you. Let's go to the application for certificate of appropriateness with public hearing. This is HPC 2211 on behalf of Ed Burke, whose property at 67 and 68 and actually 70 Main Street is going to be the topic of discussion. He's represented by George Seafree, and he's on Zoom as well. So George, welcome. It's nice to have you in person where we just talk.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the new rendering, which is first of all beautiful and secondly really helpful. I think that we're actually going to get more clarity out of the print. Ed, George has provided really beautiful copies to each of us and a large format copy as well. And we are scheduled for a public hearing. I think before opening it up to public comment, let's just review some of the changes since last time. George, you want to walk us through?
Yeah, Ed and I started looking at some of the original old photos in the building. And plus our previous meeting, we got some really good input from the board here. And we looked at some of the old photos and there wasn't any board and batten siding on it. So we decided to eliminate all the board and batten siding and just strictly stay with clapboard siding. And also underneath these porch roofs, the original photos all had recessed panels on the top, above and below the windows. And we added all that in. We also added all the brick on the exposed front part of the foundation, including the 2 entries with wrought iron railing. We also added shutters on the front facade. And we decided to go with, Mr. Burke wanted to go with a separate color on the gable part of the building. It originally was two different buildings. So we decided to go with night gray on the gable part of the building. And it's going to be on that side. And then on the main part, it's slate gray. Yes. Plus, all the trim is going to be white.
Mhm. Great. And I think, based on the first design, wasn't the original design going to bring brick facade up to the windows?
We were going to do stone.
So that's right, yeah.
And,
We got in the conversation.
by your suggestion, we decided to go with the brick. It is more classic on Main Street. And we decided not to go up to the windows, but to just do the foundation because the original photos had recessed panels there.
Great, George, thanks for that summary. Ed, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, it was, I think, who dialed in last time? Was it Mr. Cook?
By Mr. Reedy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and, you had a couple comments about, having it, differentiate the two buildings and the historic nature. And when we were going through looking at the photos, want the building to be beautiful, want it to be a statement on Main Street. I think what we originally were doing, we're trying to modernize it. But looking at all the past photos, I love the history of the building. And I think this brings it back, 100+ years, and will be representative of what New Paltz looked like, and hopefully will be something everyone can be proud of.
agreed. Yeah, I love the changes that you've come up with. Really do. Colleagues, any questions before we call for public comment?
I have some suggestions, although I have a different color from my previous meeting, which was night gray and iron gray. And based on those, I selected a few colors for the shutters and also the front doors to kind of make them pop a little bit.
There's stainless steel,
Oh,
big glass stainless steel
but
doors.
it would be nice to.
Yeah, the commercial doors and Ed wasn't planning on
Is it
changing
not
that.
possible to paint them?
Not sure.
So,
There's only a minimal frame, right? It's all glass. Yeah.
we kind of added a few colors to match the selected siding colors. And also with the trim, since you would have to paint the window surrounds and also the cornices, it might be a better option to have trim that's primed and then you could paint everything the same white color. Because if you have a white siding or a white trim board that's already painted, it might be very difficult to match the paint color that you would use on the window surround in the corner.
No, is that the pearl gray?
No, this is Arctic white.
Okay, that's what we're gonna use. And Hardy board, every color they make, they have a Benjamin Moore formula to do the exact paint. But it's very simple to match.
Okay.
It's called Arctic White.
Yes.
Okay.
I would only suggest that this is a very bright white color, and maybe on historic buildings it might be better to have something a bit more subdued. If you compare,
Well, we have to go pretty much with
that's
Hardy
why
color because we're buying all the band boards and trim boards from Hardy.
they have fine.
Yeah, but it's better, you get a 20-year warranty on your paint finish when you buy it all pre-finished.
I see.
Yeah, but they do make a
There's
soft,
something that might
they
soften
make a softer white. There's two whites they make. Yeah, they make a softer white. We gotta see how it looks with that. Right.
That would be nice. Just because it's a historic building and they could be like. And the Black Forest print for the
Yes,
shutters.
we like that,
Yeah.
definitely.
What is- It's called Black Forest Green.
Black Forest Green, yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. We can return to colors and then deliberate. If nobody has a specific, why don't we open the public hearing and see if we're hearing anything from the public? Motion to open public hearing? I saw Shane first, Steve second. All those in favor? Okay, so public hearing is open. Is anybody from the public wishing to speak to this issue? Wait, I can almost see you. Anything you wanted to say? Okay. And anything on YouTube? Okay. And okay. Hearing nothing from the public, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Michael, are you in favor of closing public hearing just for the vote?
Sure, yes.
Great. Okay, so no comments received from the public. George and Ed, I'll just kind of start. I think the changes that you've made are to a wonderful degree, really good. Just kind of thinking about clapboard all around, I think brings it back into the original idiom building. That change away from stone to the recessed panels, ditto, I think is really, really good. What are the panels going to be made of? Hardy board?
Yeah, so you buy a 4x8 sheet for a panel, and then you use their trim boards
And
to
just
create
trim
a
it out.
panel.
Okay. And we did discuss last meeting, we're going with smooth. Okay, I think
Yep.
that's a pretty
I
significant
agree.
detail. And let's see, the only other thing, we do have a little red, right? We're talking about those rafter tails are going to have the stars are going to be trimmed out.
He's going to paint them, but he hasn't decided on the color.
Okay, I think I'm seeing little dots of red on this.
Yeah, that was original when we talked about the red. But we may want to do it the forest green with the shutters. I'm not sure.
Sure. Well, I was going to suggest that, in my mind, you guys are clearly thinking in historic colors. I'm comfortable leaving the final decisions to you two and Camilla's advice and, just leave that open as long as we're kind of within the palette that we're talking about. Which I think is really good.
And even if there is no red, unless it's a Victorian building where they highlight all the different little details.
Right.
If it's all white, I think it's still really nice.
Still a nice
Leaving it
detail.
white.
I had one.
researched some, video recordings from that time, and usually they just paint it one color.
Yes.
My initial thought was also to highlight the details, but
Yeah, the overhangs themselves have a lot of detail, little socket brackets and grease boards.
I mean, to me, that's really what I would want to say, that I feel like this is such a win for the village. It's such a beautiful design that those details are something that get figured out, as you finish up. I had one question. I think I remember that on the western side, there are some HVAC, some split units.
They're right here. There's 2 units right here.
That's just those 2 vents?
No, there's 2
Hanging units.
2 hanging units.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 Mitsubishi hanging units that we didn't show in the
Okay,
rendering, but they're there. They have to stay.
Of course they did, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure I was remembering that.
Yeah,
right.
we're gonna detail out the platform and the brackets.
Yeah,
To
it's an
make it look
opportunity.
nice.
Yeah. Good, but yeah, they've got to stay, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my part. Other comments or questions?
I think it looks better and better. I mean, as you've gone through the process, I think it's going to be a wonderful addition to Main Street.
Yeah, agreed. I think it looks great. You had mentioned this, I know that the Hardy boards come with 4x8 sheets, and I guess it looks like for those recessed panels that there isn't a dimension that's greater than 4 feet, but I guess I just want to make sure that those recessed panels, you don't have to have a seam and, have two pieces to create the recessed panel, but it doesn't look like you're going to have that issue. And I mean, I think it looks really great. I love the direction. I like the recessed panels, and yeah, great design.
Thank you.
And it's really nice that the gable end is dark. And I just love
Yeah.
that.
A really good
detail
move.
and that difference.
It's really a nod to the building's evolution as well, right?
Right.
By calling it out with those two complementary colors. Michael, any comments or questions?
No questions. I just concur. I think the decision to go back to the historic look, but still sort of give it a bit of a modern, sort of fresh face is great. I think everything you're doing looks really fabulous. So thanks a lot.
Thanks. Colleagues, anything else we should discuss? Is everybody in agreement that we can leave the colors just to kind of leave it to the process? We kind of know roughly the palette that we're in. Great.
Yeah, I come up with a suggestion with maybe popping those aluminum frames. It'd be pretty nice, I think with the gray and the panels.
It's customary. All this.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
the
we'll
paint-
look into it.
Yes, the paint the door something different than the body and the trim color, just to
Yeah.
make them stand out.
Yes,
And it might be good for the business.
Could be
That's
good for the business.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. The little I know about this, you can buy a product that etches metals that makes them take paint.
bonding agents that bond to metal,
Yeah.
and you can paint them.
So fingers crossed. I mean, doors are tricky because people brush up against them, but I think that's something well worth considering. Colleagues, we ready to vote? So do we have a motion to approve on the basis of the revision that we have, just noting colors are expected to be within this palette, but the exact details to be determined by the applicant. We are talking about smooth hardy board siding. We're talking about the brick facing is got depth. I'm sorry, what's the term I'm looking for?
It's a brick facing, it's real brick.
Real brick
It's
facing.
only, like what's an inch thick.
And it's custom wrought iron railings. Yeah, those are nice little details. So are anybody prepared to make a motion to approve on that basis? Second. All those in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Yep, great, thank you. Ed, that's a 5-person unanimous vote. It's a beautiful project. And thank you for taking such care in developing it and bringing it to us and listening to suggestions last month. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate your guys' input as well. Excuse me. You made me look at it from a different angle, which I hadn't first time through. So I really appreciated everybody's input, and especially George. And George, thank you for taking the time to be there on my behalf today.
Yeah, well, I echo that. Thank you. Beautiful design, well presented.
Very important to us as we work, try to get this to happen, and
Yeah.
this is gonna be a mistake.
I think, yeah, I might just want to say, especially for our visitor from the journalism program, I think this is going to be the beginning of a kind of renaissance on Main Street. It's such a conspicuous building. There's so much of it visible. It's right on that corner.
It'd be an example that you could use.
Yeah, sets a great example. So we appreciate it very much.
You guys, if you want to hold on to this to show other clients, I had this made for you.
Sure. Can you share it?
Yeah, nice for
At
you.
some
There's
point,
an
I'm
extra
sure we can
copy
give
for
it
you
back.
guys.
Great. And this one, Ed, doesn't show the turret that George worked in. You're away. And he mentioned it was gold plated, right? We're expecting that.
Okay,
Tell them what we're doing in the back.
Exactly. The swimming pool, the Infinity Edge swimming pool. Enjoy your vacation, Ed, and Valerie will communicate our decision to the building department. So
perfect. Thank you all. Enjoy your evening.
thank you, you too.
Vacation,
Thanks.
So long.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, boy.
George, thank you very much. Are you sure we can keep that for a while?
Yes,
Because that might be a really nice
Yes.
illustration. It helps so much to have those photorealistic views. Great. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Also, if someone needs a recommendation on someone to do renderings, I could forward you a contact for that.
Yeah, yeah, actually, that may come up. Yeah, that may come
It'll
up.
come in handy if it gets done properly.
That's definitely properly. Yeah, that would be great, George.
I'll send
If you can remember, I'll try to.
I'll send you that contact.
Thank you. You didn't get out of hands.
Power has gone to your head.
Floyd, would you like to come on up? Everybody, we're going to move on to a preliminary discussion of HPC 2301. This is Mr. Floyd Niffen concerning 29 South Chestnut Street. It's an application now before the planning board to modify the existing stable building at the rear of his property at 29 South Chestnut, replacing 2 windows, 2 exterior doors, repainting and adding light fixtures and signage. Floyd, welcome to our merry little board. Thank you for your patience with our technology. I don't know, usually things work well, and they didn't tonight. Is there anything you wanted to add to what we have in the application?
Just that, we're gonna be replacing all the windows. You had just said 2. I don't know if that was,
Yeah, what we had was 2, but you're thinking. this
all the
is-
windows will be.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you know what? I think I misread that. Modify, replace windows and 2 extra. That was my bad. All windows. Okay.
So, and the 2 doors that we're replacing, they were, it's the 2 front doors. They had already been replaced 10 years ago. And we just matched the trim design on them, and we'll probably do the same thing, but with an insulated door. So it would just be a flush door, and we would create that same trim pattern
Okay.
to match. The ones on the second floor, those are original. So that's that was the style of the of all the doors, had that X at the top. And,
Right. Are the upper doors functional anymore?
Yes.
They still are.
yeah, and we'll still be using them. Again, those will probably, depending on what shape they're in, we may just insulate the back of them, and they would just be opened up when we get delivery.
Cool. Great. So colleagues, this is not a public hearing, but a consultation with the idea that we'll be forwarding a response to the planning board. They requested it. To me, the project looks great. I guess I wanted to drill down a little bit on what you had in mind for the windows. The majority of them are 6/6. And so the Gen Welds, okay. Have you used them before? Do you know, do
Yeah,
they have
so
a track
they're-
record with you?
Yeah, they're flat window on the outside, a wood on the inside, to simulate a divided light pattern. And the idea was to make the building all that red color and then have the windows just be black, so they kind of just blend in.
So,
The color of the barn is not original. It's a color I did 10 years ago when we painted it just to make it look like a barn.
okay.
Um,
What do you
when I-
know about the original? Aesthetic?
My guess, the person who built it was my great uncle. All his stuff was dark green and white. The barn was tan and brown when I bought it, so we just made it red.
Barn red, right.
My only concern with the windows is that if they are black, you wouldn't really see the volumes from the outside. Because usually windows black and you just get them unless you put a curtain.
I don't have an example to show you, but typically the black still stands out. I've noticed we've been doing a lot of black windows lately, so it's become a very popular color. It's a neutral color, so we did a barn over on Huguenot Street for Doris.
Oh, was that,
So that when we did that one, I think that was about 5 or 6 years ago. Same thing, everything was just the dark red, and then windows were black and that.
and are the mullions black as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just, got it.
And this one looks good.
I was just gonna paint everything red. Yeah. And that's what we did on that barn. I think it turned out really nice, having everything red.
And what about the doors being replaced? Those would be,
So those would be site built, but we would, again, so the ones that are there, we site built those 10 years ago, but I need to make them insulated.
Yeah.
So
for the color for the doors?
they would be red, the same color as the siding, yeah. I honestly, I think all the white kind of looks blotchy on there. It's not a big barn to begin with.
Could you maybe go for the trim and for the doors, maybe like a darker, like a step darker of that same color family? To kind of maybe it blends in, but it still adds a little bit of a variety to the facade. I'm not sure. Do you have any photos? Well, I mean, we didn't ask you to bring this beforehand, but maybe if you could send us photos of that barn you're referencing where the trim and the doors all match the siding and black windows, because I guess I'm just having a little bit of difficulty picturing how that might look.
You mean like a color rendering?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
There's maybe, even if there's a way to hatch these drawings, just apply a color or.
But what I could do is take pictures of the barn I was just referring to on Huguenot Street. Everything's one color, and it looks pretty sharp. And that was again from about 5 years ago. You guys did the review on that one.
Yeah, I think it might have been a little more than 5, but
Yeah.
yeah,
you're right,
It
it's
did
probably
come
more.
out well. Yeah, I'm sort of with Shane on that, just wondering if, a monolithic red might just lose some things that you want to keep. Although I also respect that, that white on red isn't original either. So,
Yeah, what the colors, my memory of the color scheme was, it was all green. It was like a real dark green at one point, and the house was all green. So he liked green. That was a popular color back then.
yeah, no, it was. Yeah. It's a beautiful building and, very cool idea you've got going just as a business. Other thoughts on color?
Floyd, I was wondering if maybe the downstairs doors could also be black. I'm looking at some pictures of barns on the internet.
So you're saying the
The
double
doors that-
door and-
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ones you built?
Yeah, so if that looks good, if you guys think that looks good, yeah, I'm trying to. I think if I keep it just one or two colors, it will, because it's such a small building, it would help.
Right,
That the door we're not replacing is actually not going to function as a door. That's the one all the way to the left. That'll be cold storage in there,
right.
so that won't be a door anymore. But I was going to keep the door just for the look.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I was just
So-
thinking about the doors that you said, not the upper, not the hay bale door or the one off of the southern end, just. Anyway, it was just a thought that it might help them sort of pop a little bit with the windows.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think this is a place where, what we're trying to do is give some advice you don't have to pay for. Like we would be glad to, see those pictures, bring you back for another meeting or meet in between meetings just to kind of help. I mean, ultimately, we really, oh, that's nice.
It's not a
Yeah,
picture of a red barn with red doors at the same.
Yeah, it's
that's a nice look.
yeah,
That's a really nice look.
yeah, that looks similar to the one on Huguenot Street.
Yeah.
That we did.
Yeah, that's almost.
Yeah, I was surprised when we did that project, how it all kind of.
I mean, I think that gives a really good model for something we could think of.
And the windows are.
Was it
darker
brown?
there too, right?
Yeah.
Brown.
They're like a,
You can imagine if they were black.
for the divided lights, you're thinking about the kind with grills in the middle?
No, these are, they're on the exterior and on the interior.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
something
the ones in the middle, those you don't see.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think the fact that they're the simulated divided lights, you get a little profile, they're gonna be seen, I think that's a great thing.
A type of window where outside, divided with like 40. Not,
Yeah. Yeah, they're good windows. Yeah.
We've been working up a sort of guidance sheet for clients who may not know anything about Windows, and it's basically on my desk and has been for 5 months. But that's what we're advising, and keep that profile. So, I'll just say also, I think the lighting's really a great choice. This kind of classic barn lighting, and the doors are going to basically look the same, and I think it looks great.
One thing I noticed about the doors, it looks like the lower doors you move them off the center line from the upper doors. They're no longer a line.
I think that's just an issue with his CAD drawing did that. They're not gonna move out of center, so they'll
Okay,
stay.
good,
they'll
yeah,
stay
'cause I
centered.
feel like that it'll be important to keep them aligned.
Yes,
Okay,
Oh,
great.
I can see why you say that, but they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
and like you said, currently the two line up, it would stay that way. for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think that might be.
I'll hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the windows are getting, the doors are getting truncated a little bit, right? They're not going to be as wide, and looks like that's due to the storage that you need to the left of the doors on the first floor, which is fine. I mean, I don't think that the door needs to maintain that width, but I guess those doors, they give you whatever egress clearances you need. Like, are one of these doors going to be posted in place and just kind of kept shut?
The double doors on the first floor, we'll need both in order to get the equipment in.
Okay, yeah.
They both have to open, and hopefully it's just, once a year or once every few years that's the case.
Okay, and then I guess whatever leaf size for one of the doors is, I'm assuming it's egress compliant. I mean, even though it looks like if you lose a lot of width, you'll still get egress compliant door, but yeah, I mean, I guess you're losing, since those doors are getting a little less wide, that X gets smaller to maintain the equal margins, but I think that's fine. I mean, I still think it more or less matches the existing style, and that's not really a big deal.
Yeah, I believe the downstairs doors will be the exact same width as the upstairs doors. They'll
Oh,
actually
okay.
line up better.
Oh, okay.
Good.
All right, good.
That's
Okay, that's
positive.
great.
That's a good.
Maybe they could be even trimmed together then. You could have like have the, like a panel connecting the two and just trim them all as one unit. Something to look at when it gets revised. You have like a decorative panel in the middle, maybe that X motif on the doors, maybe something to take a look at. And then that,
So
and then
Shane,
that
just so I'm sure I'm following, so between the upper door and the lower, you would
Yeah.
suggest just a panel?
I mean, it's, since they're going to be the same width, they could be trimmed together, like the casing
Yeah,
is full height, and then that light fixture could live in like a decorative panel that maybe matches like the same kind of X motif that are on the doors, or I don't know. It's just a thought, but not to create more work for Lee, who I actually know Lee and the
Yeah.
person who worked on this drawing. But,
And I'm trying to keep it sort of utility looking too, just because that's the nature of the barn
yeah.
as well.
It is something to think about. I mean,
Yeah, I do
there's
like that
a
idea.
chance to maybe get a little bit of decorative. But it's a barn,
yeah.
I get that too. So our role is just to report something forward to the planning board. I think you're hearing a lot of support for the project. Shall we just agree to stay in touch on that color question? And maybe the first thing you could do is share with us and planning board what the Huguenot Street barn looks like, just a couple of key photos. Pete, can you recover that photo from Pinterest? It might be nice to send that on to Floyd. Because that was more of a beige brown, and that also looked pretty good. And do you have another meeting with the planning board?
Yes, I have a public hearing next month.
Next month, so
Yeah.
we've got time, but
Yeah.
we can move quickly on something
Sure.
like that and try to be helpful. Does that feel like the right move to everybody? Anything else we would want to? I honestly hadn't thought much about color change, but I agree with you that it's a small barn, breaking it up with, white starkly against red may not be the move. I think you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that photo looks good. I like the direction of that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's plenty of others on this. If you could send to Val, just, we'll just add them to the file, just some photos, and I don't know if we really even need a meeting. I mean, we can just kind of forward suggestions to the planning board. Unless, if you want
No,
to.
I like the ideas that you've given. I'm gonna play with the different colors. And I'll take some pictures and I can submit all that to you guys in the meantime anyway, so. I do like that picture, and sound like Michael had a picture too with the black door, so I'll get up with Michael.
Michael, if you can recover that picture you were mentioning, either get it directly to Floyd or to Val. That would
Yeah,
help.
I'll do that.
Perfect. There's a lot of help in color too.
Yeah, okay.
I can embarrass her, but she is.
But I feel that
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
it's nice to see more vibrant colors around the field.
It's a little more green than red.
Nice to see. Is that pre-primed, I think?
Yeah.
It's really cool. Great. Is there anything else that we can help with or answer? Great. Thank you for making time.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. We will be quick about getting thoughts forward for planning board. I'll have them in plenty of time.
Okay.
Tag that as an action item. Thank you, Floyd.
See you guys.
Okay.
See you, Floyd.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, next, we'd like to invite Nick Warner up, HPC 2302 for Oracle Restaurant Group LLC. Sure. Go home and put their feet up. That's absolutely fine.
So that way they don't have to sit in my field a second time, right? They got to hear me first thing this morning, so I'm sure they've had enough, you know?
Also, it's nice to go home after a day at work.
Yes.
Really nice to see you guys. Cool. So I'm doing this mostly for the record. We are actually going to skip ahead to a preliminary consultation for 137 North Chestnut Street. That's Planning Board 2211 and ZB 2207 for trail length. Again, represented by Nick Warner, but also by Scott Arnold. And I'm sorry, is it Nick? Justin Bowe. Thanks, guys. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you for having us tonight. As some of you did see at the site at our meeting a few months ago, our original rendering, which is here, depicts representation of what we intend to do at the 137 North Chestnut Street site. The building will consist of 51 apartment units, which is a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. And just approximately 5,800 square feet of office commercial space on the first floor. There have been some minor changes to the rendering that we've done in consultation with feedback from the zoning board and working with our architect, AJ Coppola. The plan set that we provided has a more representative look of what the front and the sides of the building will look like. I believe we did provide a copy of this to Valerie, and I think we gave actual hard copies as well to Autumn to distribute. So we're here, as we don't have a requirement for a certificate of appropriateness, we're here for feedback, any input and guidance you'd like to offer, because ultimately we want to make this building representative of the character of the community and make sure that it fits in with the new NBR district. That's why we're here tonight.
Great, thank you for doing that and following through. Noah and I were at that original site visit. I think we were the only 2 commissioners who could attend. So we actually kind of walked some of this and got a sense of scale. And I think the scale's fitting. That part of North Chestnut's developing really fast and will. Walk us through the materials. I guess I'm going to do a kind of double vision. So it roughly looks like what's pictured, but more specifically,
Yeah,
is
so
gonna...
pretty much this is the proposed colors, no specific colors picked out yet. But there have just been some changes in consultation with the zoning board. We actually lowered our first floor height slightly in order to create a larger parapet on the roof, so that way we could properly screen all of the HVAC equipment, so it will not be visible from the ground level or from anywhere on the site, or from off the site for that matter. I actually have a roof detail plan here for you as well, to show you that quick, that all of that will be screened and will be on the roof and hidden from view. So that's what the major change is from one drawing to the other, is that we actually lowered that first floor height. And what it did is it pushed those windows down, so they'll be tighter now. In terms of material, we propose a brick facing, very similar to what you had just heard about in one of your other projects. Currently, we are looking at a clapboard style of siding. The material has not been finalized yet as to what it will be, but either a vinyl or a hardy product is the direction that we're currently leaning in for that.
Okay. Thank you. One of the details that we talked about in the project earlier was types of brick facing. So are you intending something that's got some mass? We talked about like a 3/4 inch thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
going to have a profile stand out past the siding, so it gives it some depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it'll look like brick.
It'll
Look like brick.
Exactly.
It just,
We incorporated, you'll see basically around the entire building, we've incorporated a lot more brick than we had originally anticipated. Initially, the first thought was just the facing of the building to be brick, but then Scott and Justin, along with AJ Capola, our architect, came up with this concept to really wrap the entire building in it. You know, a lot of times you'll see that it's just the facade and then the rest of the buildings look like army barracks. But
Yeah.
we didn't want that, you know, because of the visibility of this site from all sides.
Yeah, I own the property, you all know I own the property right next door, which is brick, and it was important to me that my view of it is look like a front view. Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough.
And we're creating a green space in the back for people to recreate, you know, want to like, you come into the back of the mall, you know, we want it to be like in front, in the back as well. And I also frequent the rail trail, so, and I think there's gonna be high visibility for that. Really, it's part of the community, not an apartment.
Yeah. No, that's music to our ear. That's great. We've been urging hardy siding over vinyl. Especially, I don't know if you were here for this part, with the project that we just discussed on Main Street. You know, originally they actually came in with the wood grain style, but hardy makes a smooth, which is definitely what the preservation community urges. Obviously, this is new construction, but in that spirit of kind of working with what is in the community, I think that would be my recommendation. Smooth hardy. Yeah, it's a good product.
I think it's a nicer looking product and probably better lasting.
Yeah, I think it is. So I think that would be I think probably our recommendation. How high is the parapet? 4 or 4.5, something like that. Okay, and that's enough to. Is it all going to be split unit?
It is, and
Okay,
those are
that's-
22 inches tall, so it's 1.5 approximately. And then New York State wants to have them 12 inches up off the
all
ground,
right.
so that makes it 2.5, so it's 30 inches tall to the top and
You're 38
feet. So
Yeah.
parapet is actually exceeding the height of the equipment. So even if you were level with the top of the building, on another building, looking across level, you still wouldn't see the equipment.
I think that's a really good suggestion. That was a planning board suggestion.
Zoning board.
Yeah.
Got all of them. If we have most of them up there and some being on the ground level. Raising that.
That's good. How many do you have to put at ground level now? You know?
Units, no.
No, oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. They all go, okay, that's great. Yeah. Well, we learned from you that those runs can go a lot more.
Yeah, that's correct.
And we've
That's
been
right.
pushing that as needed.
It was one of the considerations the zoning board is giving to us, because we are asking for a height variance. And the reason is obviously to put that equipment up there and to make our ceiling heights between the floors 9 feet in the apartments. So that was part of the consideration.
Again, the residents, so thank you for that. Let's see. Could I just see the image one more time? Yeah. So I feel like we're in the zero place, testing a little bit of profile under the windows. I'm not seeing a lot of detail there that tells me what's intended. Do you,
Just a quick.
Yeah, They're a recessed in window, but I don't know the amount of profile. We haven't spec'd the windows out yet for that. But if there's a recommendation that you have, we'll definitely bring it to agent's attention.
Do you mean here, Tom, or where?
I mean, I think the windows, do they set into the building or?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
gotcha.
set in, but then one of the things that kind of evolved with Zero Place, where honestly, we didn't have a lot of input, is that there's a stone sill that doesn't have any profile from the main line of the building. And
I'm proud of the building.
it's not proud of the building, and it's interesting to me, at least to my eye, to Camilla's eye, that wasn't a successful feature of that design. So they went to a lot of effort
To do this.
to do that, but it
didn't accomplish it.
doesn't stand proud, and you kind of lose.
The architectural value of it.
And also like the frame of the windows is more or less flush with the adjacent brick, whereas typically, windows in a brick building, they're set in a little bit and there's like a brick mold
Mold,
usually
sure.
that's, inset and it's a little bit set in from the face of the brick. So I feel like that, that detail will give you the depth that Tom was referring to. And actually that leads me to another question, because
So, Shane, do you mean like a soldier course around or that accents around the window kind of a thing? or-
it's not really a soldier coat, it's called like a brick mold, and it's usually, I forget the size of it, but it has like a very specific profile, and
We went out front, it's got to be around the front door on the building
I
here.
can almost imagine it. I think I don't know what I'm calling it the right thing, but I think I know what you're talking about. I like what you're talking about.
yeah, because this way, like you see like the brick return like a little bit, maybe,
Yes.
like an inch or 2 inches, and then the trim around the window lives within like that, set back from the face of the brick. And then also, so the way it's drawn up, all the windows were kind of shown being trimmed out the same, but I'm assuming that there would be a brick molds for the windows that are in the brick
In the brick itself.
portion.
Yeah.
And then in the hardy board portion, usually, like there's an applied molding, if
Correct.
it's like, if it's to read like a wood frame building. So I think in reality, the windows will have a different casing from brick to hardy board, right? I mean, if you just think about the way,
The application would be
Yeah.
such, yes.
so, which is fine. I feel like since they're drawn and rendered in a way that they're going to match, in reality, they can be a little bit different, but that casing around the windows in the hardy board section could be the same width and profile more or less as the brick mold. So it'll look similar, but in reality, one will probably be applied, because to achieve a similar detail where you have a recessed molding around the hardy board, it's like, it's not really how you would do it. And you know what I mean? So in reality, it's going to look a little bit different, but you could have more or less the same size and profile, but the brick mold will live, within the openings in the brick, and the trim at the hardy board is going to be applied around the brick like a surround. And again, they could be the same size and profile more or less, but they will in reality look a little bit different.
I think that's a really good suggestion. Again, I think, really just down the street, if you look at that detail, you can kind of see a missed opportunity, we think.
When I look down the street, I see a lot of missed opportunities. I'm sorry.
Actually, I could go on and on, but I don't think I will.
Our goal is not to repeat that here.
Yeah, thank you.
With a substantially lower building, breaking it up a little bit more and having it be kind of contiguous throughout. A lot of green recreating space on the property. In fact, we're lowering the say the word right.
Our parking space count will be lowered. Originally, when we met in November, this section of the building, the entire first floor was going to be that office commercial space. We've taken the back half of that and put in 5 additional apartment units and cut the commercial space in half. And 1, to accomplish being able to provide additional affordable housing. 2, by doing so, we've actually cut down.
Very important. So, sorry.
No, it's fine. We've cut down then on our number of trip generations, so our traffic impacts will be less. and therefore our parking requirements are less. So that's going to allow us some additional green space on the property, in addition to the actual trail link bridge that we're going to put in that will give public access to the rail trail from the site as well.
And in all, we're actually lowering the impervious surface.
Impervious surface.
Thank you,
Yeah.
impervious surface from what it currently is with the structure that was there in the parking lot. There'll be less impervious surface, thank you, when we're done. So we're kind of opening up more of the land again to nature.
Wonderful. There's so many good features to this project.
I think there's 3 acres there we're only using.
Yeah, we're at 30, well,
Is it less than 1.5 we're using that?
we're just about 1.5. I think,
With an attempt to get a
with-
lot of it
That's great.
to nature.
Again, I mean, that's a win for nature. It's also going to be a win for your tenants who have a little more green space than comparable buildings.
What we're also doing, and I know this is probably not something that's relevant in this conversation, but we're trying to create, instead of having a feeling of trespassing to get from South Chestnut Street across the property to the rail trail, we're trying to create an actual walking path from North Chestnut Street to the rail trail. So it actually invites people to get off the rail trail and maybe walk up the main strip there, and the opposite. Like, here, this is the way to go. Come,
Right.
stop at our picnic tables, and hang out here and make it part of that experience.
That's really good.
Also, it's, my feeling is that the rail trail could kind of become the sidewalk that people would walk on North Chestnut, because that area there is, the topography is very hilly on the opposite side, and then on our side, headed towards town, there's the river, or the stream with the bridge where it gets really narrow.
Right.
That would be very hard to navigate if you walk kind of unsafe. So more people walking up and down, and as these developments go in, we can use the rail trail rather than North Chestnut.
Yeah, that's the, lovely way to think about it.
That's a valid point, because when you get down that stretch, it's come to our attention that that bridge doesn't have really pedestrian crossing on it. So this will be a point of access on the other side of the bridge. Right now, there's plenty of points on that.
Closer to
Yes,
home,
that
yeah.
side, but not on this side. So offer options.
Michael, is there anything you wanted to weigh in on or ask?
Yeah, actually, a couple things. For the front of the building, I'm wondering why you chose 2 different materials rather than do the whole front in brick.
It was represented to us that it would be too harsh of a look to have it one material, and the planning board asked for us to have it, to break it up.
So I think this is a conversation maybe that this commission board could have at some point for the NBR district, as it because of it's sort of a new opportunity to create a look. My concern about these 2 different materials is it's I don't know that they go that well together. I mean, Zero Place is an example of a relatively large building that used 2 different facade materials. And when we were talking to them, we, the planning board, were talking to them, we were really encouraging them initially to stick to, originally they came in with just brick, but they had so many other things going on that it was also very distracting and didn't have any real flow to it. I just worry that I'm just not certain that this is going to work well. I wonder if perhaps doing like red brick and white brick might be a better option, so that the material's the same, the windows then could all, like what Shane was saying, they could all have the same material around them and therefore be recessed in the same way and look the same. Because invariably a building like this is going to be sort of compared to like a warehouse, the older warehouses, which are often get renovated and are pretty attractive. Or you could try to make it look like a main street, but I don't think that either of these quite get there.
Definitely something to think about. Or two, Michael, just to give my opinion, I'm not sure for myself, red brick and white brick is quite what I would go for, but there are different tones of
Sure.
red or get brown in there. That's a really interesting thought. I mean, I'm sort of bringing up, more of an urban residential image where you have sort of brownstones or brick row houses, and the bricks are subtly different, and that creates a nice variety. It's a thought.
Yeah, I was happened to be down on the Rondout over the weekend and was looking at that great strip of those are mostly 4-story buildings that look out across the promenades to the water, to the Rondout. And this sort of, I mean, it feels to me like what you're trying to get here is sort of more of a Main Street look with the different massing. And I like all of that, but I'm just a little concerned about the material choices. And if there was a way to get this kind of flow from the different sections of the building, but do it with the same base material, that might be something to consider.
Michael, would you think taking it all the way around, or the sides could be a different material like the hardy on the sides and the back?
So I was thinking in particular the front, but because I realize that different materials have different costs, and both materials and labor costs for installation. So I think it would be particularly important for the front, but then it would be up to you all what you felt like you would want to do around on the other 3 sides.
Okay. Are you familiar with the shades or tones of the Stuyvesant Hotel in Uptown Kingston? Building on the corner of John and Fair Street, where the Portobello restaurant used to be. Large building
Okay.
that Rupco did.
Yes, yeah, the one with the curved corner.
Curved front. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yellowish tone of brick.
Yep.
Maybe if you have a moment to look at that and
Yep.
think of, those two would be a good contrast to one another. The red and the yellow, a color like that, because that was kind of, we were going with a neutral secondary color, but there's a possibility we could look at, how that would look if we did like a red and a beige or a yellow type of brick possibly.
Okay, that's a great idea. I'll take a look at that.
I think it's definitely worth bringing up with AJ. See what options we have there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Yeah, no, my other point was about the windows, because what happened at Zero Place was sort of a post-approval surprise, and it was, but you guys have already discussed that at length, so that's fine.
But there is one other, we didn't work this out in advance. There's another observation that the windows are missed an opportunity. So,
What do you mean?
well, just saying that, you independently had the same impression of the windows that I did, that Camilla did, that probably a
Mhm.
number of people did. Just that.
Yeah, no, but what's intended here sounds fine in terms of having them set in and the sorts of things that Shane was describing would be
Yeah.
perfect. Anyway, thank you.
I don't think it takes much.
Thank you, Michael.
Just that, coming off the brick line, half an inch, 3/4 inch.
It makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference.
Seeing the brick corner piece return
Yeah. Also.
and have the the grout line return a little bit.
Seems like an easy thing to achieve from a construction standpoint. You get a lot of aesthetic value out of it.
I think you get a lot of value. Sorry, Michael.
Tom, I'm assuming these are double hung windows? Is that the plan?
That is the plan.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, it'll be much easier. I think that was one of the problems with Sierra Place was they went with casement windows.
Yeah, I noticed that when I drive by, the windows is protruding from the building.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a very different,
The efficiency, they're tighter. I'm right about this, right? The casement
yeah.
style and more weather tight.
yeah, so.
Except for when they're open.
And
So
they,
when they're-
it chimney opens right a bit.
Yeah, well, then they achieve what,
Except for when
you
it's
know.
too hot in the building in January and the window is open.
God, yeah. No, I think you probably have your HVAC worked out.
We know something that goes on.
Could I just also bring up the question, so some of the cornice work on the brick sections, just at the top. Yeah, it looks good. I'm seeing maybe a slightly more massive cornice than I guess I would have envisioned. I don't know if that's.
Is that the Tom stuff?
Yeah, exactly. To me, that's a very nice and important part of creating that look. It just looks a little bit overpronounced and heavy to me, just kind of massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks
I
like,
get that feeling
I
too.
mean, they look like they could be like 6x6s.
Yeah,
from
that's
what I'm, from the rendering. Now, we could get
renderings do these things sometimes too.
we can get a detail from AJ of what he, was going to propose, but they do, you are right, they do look pretty heavy on there.
and certainly the brackets too. Maybe it looks like the brackets almost stick proud of the cornice above. a
Yeah,
little
you're
bit,
right,
just a
especially
little bit,
if
and
you look
that
over
might
here,
be-
you see that.
That might be throwing it off, and also if they come right, actually, no, they're brought up a little bit from the bottom of the
Yeah,
fascia that they're
touch
set
from-
onto, but maybe it's just making the brackets a little bit more delicate looking, might balance out the cornice a little bit.
Mhm.
I think you're right about that 100%. I'd imagine that this is not how it would be represented in real life, because you're right. It looks like they stick out even further
The
than.
little crowd, which,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means you probably get some, yeah,
It'd be great to have a birds on.
or icicles. and
Icicles
or
and
something.
blow, right. That's terrible, but.
Make a note to talk to.
But
AJ.
again, that could be just kind of the effect of doing a rendering.
But it's certainly good to bring up to AJ to make sure it doesn't end up that way in real life.
Exactly. We got it on our list and we have a follow-up call with our team on Wednesday after, we have the zoning board tomorrow night. We'll
Okay.
hopefully close our public hearing and get a conditional approval conditioned on seeker for the height variance. And then we have a team call Wednesday where we'll address these points and anything the ZBA has raised for us as well.
Okay, great. Would our response do you any good? Would it do you any good for that response to go to the ZBA before tomorrow's meeting? Because I'll hustle it.
If you were able to offer a response and a general opinion of your thoughts on the project would probably be very helpful. I mean, I think at this point, the ZBA has reviewed our plans, but hearing from you would probably, help them or make their decision process easier if you feel it fits into the character with some modifications that we've discussed.
That's exactly where I am. I think, overall, I think we've had some good ideas. Good idea from Michael, good idea from Shane about, from all of us about getting a little more profile around the windows.
Yeah, the big issue in front of the ZBA at the moment is just the height variance, which you
So-
ask for 2 feet, 4 inches above what the code allows.
In an effort to hide the equipment. And so that's.
Well, if everybody agrees, that's something I can explicitly say that we're in favor of that variance because it's going to hide the mechanicals.
Yeah, that would,
I feel strongly that nobody's going to notice the 2 feet and 3 inches, was it?
2 feet, 4.
2 feet, 4.
Even
I
at.
mean, technically
But
correct. I
they
don't
will
wanna-
notice a lot of mechanicals sticking up over the roof.
And it still doesn't read like it's a bulkhead wrapping around, it's not like there's this huge space above the top row of windows, like it still looks
Right, he-
proportioned.
And he gave nice topography to the areas so it laid out, so it wasn't just one big straight run,
Yeah, no, it's the design does well to hide it. It does.
Colleagues, is there anything else you want to talk about? What I would say then is please come back. When we get to the point where maybe you've got some different ideas about how that cornice might work, we're here to give you free advice. We don't charge you anything. It's a matter of getting on the agenda. We have to do it.
Do that. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everything you're doing to try to make it fit the community and work for your tenants.
That's our goal here. It's not just a development for us. This is our home. We live here. We live right next to it every day. So I want it to be nice and want it to be right. I want it to be a happy project.
We respect your opinion because you're gonna, that's the color and all that, that's not what we do every day, you know? The feedback is nothing.
I think, potentially thinking about a suite of brick colors could be well worth exploring. I'm sure there's a cost element to that, but maybe there's a way to, use less brick elsewhere. I think that's a really good idea for me.
That's a great idea. I don't think it would be a marketable price, but it can't be that. Hardy board versus, and then it just doesn't seem like this project the scale that it's going to be.
I mean, you have so many other things
Yeah.
that contribute to the cost.
And ultimately, if at the end, if it doesn't look wonderful, that's really what everyone sees. They don't see that you spent the time to use the correct beams and you got the pitch of the plumbing pipe right. It's all about what you're going to drive down the street and look at, and it's going to be the impression of the community. And that's what.
And it is the one zone right now that kind of doesn't have a guideline, right? I mean,
Right, we're
it's-
kind of inventing it as we go, and much like the project on Main Street that you may have heard something about.
Where is that? I'm just curious.
It's number 68.
Or maybe,
Yeah.
Gourmet pizza.
is that, that's
Um,
funny.
But we're sort of feeling like, that beautiful renovation is going to set a tone for what we hope will be other future renovation. Yeah. And I think we've got that opportunity. So we'd happily have you come back even for just the slightest of detail.
Well, we-
bigger line.
We have some great comments and, if anything comes to mind after the meeting, I know is always like something that pops into people's minds. Just let us know. If Valerie can communicate it to us, we'll bring it up to our team. But we definitely appreciate the opportunity to present this tonight. We probably will definitely be back for another stop before our planning board public hearing, and any help you can offer us to the ZBA and
Yeah.
and their thoughts, we greatly appreciate. I know they would probably appreciate it too. It helps them in, making their decision that another board of the village has signed off as well.
Yeah, we've done that before on height variances where we think it, the totality of what we're looking at. makes sense. So
Great.
I will do that and copy it. Excuse me. Anything else? Michael, any last idea?
No, I'm just looking at the rendering. I think the proportions look really nice. The the spacing between the windows and the sort of the placement of the windows. It's a really it's a very eye-pleasing look. So thank you.
That's what you say, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks. So the next move will be, it'll be pretty schematic. Just because I'm gonna have to do it tonight. But the ZBA will have it and I'll copy the planning board.
Great.
That's very nice.
And if you need to break them up, Mr. Chairman, and give us just a recommendation on height, that's fine for tomorrow's purposes. And
That's
if you
true,
need
too.
some more
Sure.
time
Yeah,
on
we
the,
I might
planning
end up
board,
having
that's
to do
okay.
that, yeah.
if that's easier for you.
I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
And then I'll let it know.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you. I appreciate
Take care.
your time. No,
Look
it's not
forward to
easy to
seeing
find
you
the
again.
extra time these days, but have a nice year. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
I'm not going anywhere. No, I need the back of one of them.
Okay, fair enough.
Try to
There you go.
make it easier. Thanks.
Okay, again, Scott, thank you very much. Okay, everybody, let us go back to HPC 2302.
Thank you for taking us out of sequence.
Oh, no, that makes
Just
total
makes
sense.
it, let those guys go home and rest, you know,
Yeah,
not like us government types.
but if it doesn't help you. You can also, if you have follow-up questions, you're welcome to contact me. I'm listed on the faculty register, so you can find me. Thank you. Okay, no, that's, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense. So the context, everybody, for HPC 2302 is the, really lamentable fact of the fire that took out the building at 15.5 Front Street. As I think was communicated to you, Nick, because landmarking is by the lot, by the property. So in addition to everything that we would be doing, we explicitly have to talk about the design. So,
Understood. And I don't know if I communicated or if Corey had spoken to anyone. Because we are going to build within the prior footprint of the building, we don't have a zoning or planning board requirement. So in this case, we do have a certificate of appropriateness and a sign off from you folks. And then once we've incorporated any changes that you've asked us to incorporate, we can then submit a plan set for the building department for Corey to review and then ultimately obtain a building permit for this process. So it's kind of unique.
Yeah,
We're building a brand new building, but we don't have any additional layers of review other than.
Is that usual, by the way? I remember when this was going through email, I thought that is peculiar. It sounds like an odd loophole, but do other communities do it?
I think it's actually a state building code issue. From what I understand, Corey, when we first talked to Corey about it, he says, so long as you don't change the ground footprint of the building, it does not require any additional review or oversight other than any specific zone oversight that we have, in this case, your review. So the building is actually going to be just slightly smaller because the Mexican kitchen building was not a rectangle, it was a trapezoid. It was 14 feet in the front and 12 feet in the back and kind of ran on an angle on one side. We're going to square it off. And if you see the plan, it's stepped in just slightly on the back corner there. And that's just to accommodate that because this could not be the full 14-foot width, and we did not want to build a trapezoid building.
Right.
We're unique in New Paltz, but we certainly don't want to get into new construction methods like that. So a little bit about the project. I purchased Mexican Kitchen, the business, from Adam Monteverde in 2021. I actually sold Mexican Kitchen, the business, on September 1st of 2022. The new owners were in operation for 29 days when the fire happened. In December of 2022, I actually acquired the interest back in Mexican Kitchen that they had bought from me. So I actually bought them back out of it, made them whole financially, and actually they made a little bit of money on the transaction. But I am now working with Patrick Wang, the landlord, to rebuild the building and to ultimately put Mexican Kitchen back in the space. That's our intended plan at the present time. The change that you will see if you look at the photographs versus the plans is the building previously had a partial second story. It had a 5-foot knee wall on the outside, and we're going to propose to make that a full height second story. We are not currently proposing that the second story be utilized for dining, but it had previously been used for storage. So we're going to use it for storage and office space. However, we are going to build it to code so that it could potentially be used for dining or another use relative to the first floor space at some point. One of the challenges that we're not running into, but we've had to face as part of the new construction is we have to make the building accessible. And if you were ever in Mexican Kitchen before and ever had to use the facilities, they were very small. It was a very tiny bathroom. So now we've had to put in a ADA bathroom, which, that's the code and we're happy to do it. But it is eating up a considerable amount of space that was in the already small Mexican Kitchen space before. The total square footage on the first floor, not inclusive of the 72 square foot patio, is 496 square feet, including the kitchen. So it's a tiny space. So we're trying to maximize our ability by having that second story be available to us if we need it. So you will see that little bit of a difference if you look at that photo compared to what we have on the proposed drawings that Ciro Interante did for us. We changed the windows out a little bit. Previously, there were no windows in the front. To the right of the door, there was a storefront panel of glass. No windows on the first floor in the front. And on the second floor, there was a larger picture style window centered above. We thought that to give it a little bit more light, give it a little bit more character, that maybe putting in stacked windows would give it a better look. And it is appropriate for the zone comparatively to other buildings in the area. So that was what our proposal was there. And then we just put a slightly larger picture window or a fixed panel window above in the gable end, just to give us some more light upstairs in that attic space as well. Materials we are proposing are hardy board siding. We have not picked smooth or wood grain, but I hear smooth is the preference, and we have no issue with that. I did submit to Valerie, and I know Camilla was going to look at some color choices and offer some feedback, and we're happy to hear thoughts on that. We submitted information on Anderson 200 series windows for the building. We have proposed a hardy trim to go wherever you see I think he calls it as a water table or freeze board. Wherever you see that, that's called out as a white trim board or any recommended color that you might have. And then one other noted change in the photographs of Mexican Kitchen and what was there at the time of the fire. At some point, someone put a corrugated product on the roof. It was not an original product. It had no historical significance. And honestly, they probably never should have been allowed to put that material on the roof of that building. But we intend to replace that with a architectural shingle in a dark color, preferably a black or very dark gray. So those are the real kind of changes from what was there. Sad that the building burnt down, obviously, because of its significance in the community. I will tell you, however, though, being in tenancy for almost 2 years there, that building was in dire need of some serious repairs. The benefit, I guess, is that the insurance company is going to pay for New Paltz to have a nice, brand new, but yet aesthetically pleasing building constructed there. I mean, this building over the years actually started leaning against 15, against the Scarborough building. And we actually, if you scroll down this one touch, I don't know if you could, there used to be a little portico that connected the two buildings. That was actually holding up the Mexican Kitchen building. So there was no foundation under the building. There was no slab of any kind. It was sitting on a
Sitting
couple
on-
of boulders in a couple of spots. We're proposing a flat on grade concrete foundation to go in the space.
Close are the buildings, 15 and that, I mean, there's that doorway that was exposed after the fire, the western view of that, the former pool.
Off the top of my head, I want to say it's about 7 feet in between the two buildings, but I'll get you the exact, because I just had it pulled up. 6 feet 10 in the front and 5 feet in the rear between the buildings. That's one of the reasons also why you see no windows on the left elevation. It would be extremely tricky to get windows that would give us the fire protection that we need between the two buildings. And there were no windows there previously. There was one that had been closed in at some point.
When landmarks, the property, I have some recollection that was a blacksmith shop originally.
Yes, it
believe
was
so.
built in 96 or 97,
Okay.
somewhere around that time. And the person who owned 15, he bought the property.
Okay, and he combined them as one lot.
It was interesting. It was also, there was a family that owned 15 for a long, long time. They had a shop. I think it was like maybe a greengrocer or butcher shop for a long time. I'm coming up with a brief name. That's what I
It
recommend.
starts with an M, but I can't recall.
But there's a pretty rich record in the library, which sounds like, you know, you've been through this.
Yeah, I made a list of all the shops that were
Oh, good.
that occupied 15.5 over the years. It was the blacksmith shop and then a paint shop, and then it became a repair shop, the blacksmith shop. It was a blacksmith shop again.
Couple times, right? Twice,
Yes, a
right?
few times,
Yeah.
even in modern times.
Amazing it never caught fire when it was a blacksmith shop.
Yeah, really good point.
It was all wood in there.
That's the place, party store, flower shop. Tattoo parlor.
But tattoos, right? Yeah, it was tattoos at one
Right.
time. It was a hot dog place before it was
Yeah.
Mexican
That's
kitchen.
correct, yeah. Pretty sure.
Italian ice cream store too.
Yeah,
Candy
that's
and
right,
ice cream
early
store.
on, maybe. That's something that, you know, potentially when the grand opening comes, we could help with. I mean, that kind of historical
Sure, that'd
research
be
is
great.
kind of within our purview, and we can just write up
Absolutely.
something.
Maybe we even make a placard or something we can put in
Sure.
the building, so
and-
a little history about it, you know, maybe some of the original photos. We have a drawing that someone did of the blacksmith shop. Like a hand drawing that somebody did that we saved. We found it in the attic.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we have that, but
I found 2 pictures really at the library.
those are pictures.
And, this is then the second blacksmith shop opened in
Oh, okay.
1994. And Rich Stephens found a coin at the site from 1884.
Oh, wow.
And it was valued at $9 because it was so, you know,
Like really-
Tarnished, yeah. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
but it the article mentioned.
Very
And then
cool.
there's another photo. I'm not sure of the date.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't
Yeah, it didn't look as good then. Was that when it was just a garage and it
I'm
was,
not
okay. Yeah, this one I think is on file with like the assessor's office where it kind of looked just like a garage or something. It
Yeah.
had no use or anything.
And it really looks like it's blooming up. over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It was
That was before the posts were put in to hold up that cantilever that was going on. You know?
And the village.
There you go. Nick, this looks
Used to be
quite
off the
good
road.
to me. It really does. Couple of questions.
Sure.
So, am I seeing 6/6 windows?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things that we've discussed is simulated divided lights versus the grills inside the glass.
Okay,
Our preference is for something that has profile, so the simulated,
sure.
so you get some sense of profile and depth. And let's see. I think the roof is totally appropriate. Standing seam metal would also be, but I think that's considerably more money, and I think an architectural shingle is a great solution. We're definitely pushing hardy board smooth rather than faux grain.
Okay.
That really comes directly from Secretary of Interior's recommendation. To me, it looks very good. I mean, it's, you know, it's a sad irony of the fire that something beautiful is going to come out of this. And I think it will.
And a little more functional too. I mean, that's like, because everybody's kind of cobbed together what they've used in Mexican, in the building. It's like, we had our own thing and people before that did different things and.
Indeed. Do you remember how much does the ADA restroom take up of that 496?
You need that 5-foot circle, right?
Yeah,
Around us.
yeah, you have to have the required circle and the current layout is 7'6" by 6'8". So about 48 feet,
Yeah.
48 feet of it, almost 10% of the square footage, yeah.
You could squeeze that 6'8" dimension a little bit because the circle could actually go under the sink a little bit if it's a pedestal sink. Because the way he has it drawn is that the circle clears the corner of the sink if you're gonna have like a vanity cabinet, but
Right.
a circle you could, I mean, if you're really trying to find every inch you can, you could squeeze that dimension a little bit. At least that's how it is for residential code. I don't know for commercial.
Yeah, I know like we had a challenge with the stairs, for instance. The stairs have a totally different code, which required them to have like 3 additional steps. So it's, but no, I'll talk with Cyril about that and maybe he can see if he can shrink that at all.
And how much does the kitchen take up?
Kitchen's gonna take up about 120 square feet of the space.
Yeah, I can see why, thinking ahead to the second floor makes complete sense.
Does that mean that the height of the building will be
The
different or?
the new height is going to. For the other drawing. I want to say it's going to be 23 feet from ground to top of the peak.
You said the old knee wall height was about 5 feet,
About 5
and
feet,
it's going to be 8 feet
8
now.
feet now for a true height,
So
true
more or
ceiling.
less 3 feet taller. More or less.
Roughly.
It's the same pitch, right?
Correct.
So that's what we said.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, oh, either the building got skinnier, which would have made sense, or it got a little taller, but I don't think that the proportions look awkward necessarily. I mean, maybe, I don't know what the head height is of the windows on the second floor. Maybe those get brought up like a little bit, so they're a little closer to the soffits, the eave on the other side, but I mean, that's a minor thing. I mean, but then again, looking at the windows on the side, that does look appropriate. So
Yeah,
maybe
They're a
it's maybe it's fine.
5-foot window, so they're 3 by 5.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks like the sill height for the windows on the second floor is like a
A little low.
low, but it's fine. It's, I think that's what makes the building look a lot taller is that from the top of the window to the eave, you know, there's a little bit of space, whereas before that picture window, you know, is kind of, it's closer to the diamond and to the ridge. But again, I don't have a problem with it. I think that's what's making the building look much taller.
I think I'm with you on that. Shane. I do think it's somewhat moderated by the diamond shaped window.
Yeah.
If that weren't there, you'd really have a lot of gable.
Yeah, and it looks like it's matching this, like the windows on the second floor matches the sill height of the windows on the first floor, which also look like a little low. But that's, I mean, I guess that's a design decision. That's a choice, you know, how you want the, you know, the windows to be when you're, I guess, if you're sitting down at a table, that sill height's a little more comfortable for
Yeah, they're-
seating height.
I think they're roughly about 16 inches off the floor.
Okay, yeah, so pretty, I mean, that's pretty low.
I think it's just above the requirement for them to be
For
tempered.
them to be tempered, yeah, which I thought that was 20 inches, 20, but anyway, either way, I mean, I think that's what's making the building look tall, is that those windows, even though the windows themselves are tall, the sill height is low relative to the finished floor height on each floor.
Right.
But again, I don't think it looks terrible, but maybe they get scooted up a little bit, and that might help the facade, you know, make the building look a little, you know, I guess, more
Yeah.
proportioned, yeah.
Okay.
And then something else I noticed about the window trim. So the way that it's drawn is that the window trim is picture framed. Like you have the same casing all around all four edges of the window, and there's no sill. But I was looking at photos earlier, and you could see it on this page, but the windows of the existing building, as well as the windows of the building on either side, they have, you know, there's like a sill on the bottom, and it's not picture framed. So I feel like it would be preferable to keep that existing detail like it was on Mexican Kitchen, because I mean, I feel like that it just looks better, looks a little more classic, and you know, this way the way that the windows are trimmed down matches what was there before, and what, you know, and the buildings on the other side. I feel like a picture frame window just looks, I don't know, just I guess it just looks less interesting, and you know, there is a narrative there before of having that sill, so I feel like that would work a little bit better.
Okay. Definitely something we're getting.
I would endorse that as well. And I just think, you know, think about what the buildings going up Front Street look like. You're definitely in that
I think they all have
Yeah.
that like inch and a half thick sill or whatever it is,
Yeah, with the
without a skirt.
very, very slight.
Pitch on
Yeah, a
it.
little
Yep.
pitch, yeah. And then I also, something else, I mean, this is like kind of a construction detail, but it looks like there's two there's a collar tie that sits on the wall plate, and then there's a collar tie a third of the depth down from the ridge. But if you had that collar tie that's closer to the ridge, and that's shown as like a ceiling, an insulated ceiling, wouldn't you see that ceiling beyond the diamond window?
Yes, I see exactly what you're saying, and I'll talk to Ciro about that and see what his thoughts were there, because when I talked to him about the lower double 2x12 collar beams,
Yeah.
I told him if we're gonna have those there, I wanted to actually do a S4S 4x12, so it's just a finished beam on the second
Yeah.
floor. But I'll find out from him, you know, his idea on how we make that window work, because obviously we don't want a window that's, you know, looking into
Yeah, like you.
An insulated
it might
space
be
and a-
like almost like a fascia of like the ceiling return
Right.
beyond the window, which, and you know, if you have those collar ties sitting on the wall plate level, then I'm not sure that you need those additional collar ties
secondaries, yeah.
anyway.
I'll follow up with him on that from a construction standpoint and ask him, but yeah, I mean, we obviously would not have a collar tie running through that window, just so we're clear.
And then the only other comment that I have is, it looks like you're losing the brackets. Like there was these existing
wondered about
brackets that, and you know, I know that they're not doing anything structurally, but you know, they did add a little bit of interesting detail.
Here in the front, yeah.
Yeah, in the front, whereas, and now they're gone, and it's, I mean, it's a minor thing, but
Again,
I feel like
I,
they're kind of interesting. They can maybe be brought, you know,
sure,
be kept. Maybe not the existing ones, they're obviously
I'm
gone.
not here anymore, but yeah, no, I have that's not a problem at all to incorporate those back in.
Yeah, I think I'm with Shane on that as well. It just kind of softens.
$100
Yeah,
improvement.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll look nice. Who knows, maybe someone might miss that. I might.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
I think the other nice thing too is that, and obviously we're gonna have to come in for signage when we get a little further to that point, but you know, the Mexican Kitchen kind of 3 signs going on here. The hope is that we'll be able to land a sign somewhere in between those windows here and it be the sign for the restaurant,
Yep.
you
Looks like
know?
there's enough space.
Whereas before, they kind of had to tuck it underneath the window, and then they got an approval to put one out on the pole there. Kind of, you know, for me, it was kind of too busy, you know. But obviously, we get to, you know, remedy that here. The other thing is they had like a lot of different lighting going on outside on the building. We will need some type of signage lighting that we haven't figured out exactly yet, but we will probably on the first floor, because the windows and the door are going to take up much of that wall space. The remainder of the lighting for that patio will be recessed in that portico area or the overhang area. And we'll probably enclose that with some type of a hard ceiling, either like a tongue and groove pine that's finished. Because in the past that was actually open and there was like bird netting in there and it was a problem and the birds were getting in there. So we're going to do it right, and you know, everything will be downlit underneath there so it won't spray out into the sidewalk like the old lighting used to do.
yeah, that's important. That's good.
I mean, there's always challenges because everybody's, you know, trying to adapt these buildings into something different, but you know, we're getting a chance to do it right now, so we're hoping we can do.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed on Main Street is the brackets that hold signs.
The
there's a-
metal brackets.
Yeah, there's a variety of approaches, including, you know, just angle iron. So I think part of the aesthetic, you know, ought to be really thinking about what that standard or pole is going to look like. I would think there are good commercial outfits that get something.
Maybe we can get something really nice crafted in iron, you know, with the blacksmith theme, kind
Yeah,
of tying it in, you know, something wrought iron there to really make it, instead of just some flat L that somebody banged out in their shop in 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And we definitely can look at that for sure.
That's a nice idea, just to get something that's so flat still. This sounds great. So you really don't have any obligation to the planning board at all. Should we just leave it to you to get to the next iteration of design, to come back? I mean, how,
Yeah, I mean,
what's comfortable for you?
so I guess my question would be is what do you feel our next step should be with your board? Because we do obviously we're going to move this quickly because
Okay.
we want to get in the ground because we're not making any money with it being closed right now. So,
Yeah.
and I have employees that I want to bring back to work. And so it's kind of important for us. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we've had a very mild winter. So we could have been putting a shovel in the ground at any moment. So what do you think's best, our next step for you? I mean, I obviously I've got all of our notes here and I know we still need to talk about some colors. And if you had recommendations, I'm happy to hear those too tonight, Camilla.
And I thought that among the comments that you forwarded to us, something like timber bars or protected ground that could also correlate with the stone.
Yeah,
That's on
Yeah, you've got stone next to it.
Dark or khaki brown, you said.
So that I think that the trim boards, if you buy them colored, I think they come in a very limited color palette. So I'm not sure what would exactly match these. But if you could get something that's similar.
But as
at
opposed to
least,
going with a
as
white,
opposed to-
I just thought we would try to keep what had kind of been the standard on the building with a brown, with a brown or a tan and a white trim. But again, if I'm open to suggestions and thoughts, because remember, the building next to us is a very muted, neutral, brown and
Yeah.
white kind of building
Pretty pale
too. So
brown.
I didn't want it to be too, didn't want to pop off the page too much, but obviously if we can add a little bit of depth to it here, that would be good.
Cobblestone is a bit of an off-white, a bit more clean. I wouldn't suggest to go with Arctic white because that's just very,
Yeah,
very
that's
white
the-
and very bright. Or the Navajo beige, that's a bit yellow. Yeah.
That'll be a little bit more yellow.
I mean, here's one thing I would suggest is that you two could have a consultation.
Yeah.
I mean, we just kind of defer to Camilla on this.
Sure.
honestly.
It's also difficult.
I'll get this. I'll get the samples. I saw you had some hardy samples here tonight, but you didn't have those. But,
Yeah, we gave some. But
And
they
the
can be
change the
informed.
I'm gonna ask, we work with Herzog's on this, I'm gonna ask them for a sample box, and when we're done with it, you guys can keep it, and then that way you'll have it here,
Mhm.
then you'll have it, and you can just whip it out and here, this is the hardy we want you to use, so. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
We are
Um,
not that much different, but nice.
Well, here's what I think. I mean, why don't we get you on the March agenda?
Okay.
With the idea of approval.
okay,
So I don't think it's a terribly long, I mean, my sense of the meeting that we've just had is that most things are looking really good on this project. A number of significant improvements with just a couple of loose ends that, you can think about in the next couple of weeks.
sure, absolutely, and I'll get with Camilla in the meantime, and we'll
Exactly.
finalize some colors, and we'll get samples in for that, yeah, no, I mean, I think that's all definitely reasonable, and we'll answer some of those technical questions. We may add in some windows here. They would obviously be in the same size and vein. So we just
Bring
have
a
to
few
see
more
where
back.
just kind of maybe continue them back a little. But I'll find that out with Cyril, and then we'll give you a finalized plan on
Sure,
that.
yeah. On the face of it, I think that does look good to have maybe 4 courses rather than 3 windows. I mean, you may also be driven by where the restroom falls.
Yeah, we tried to put the restroom on the other side.
Oh, okay, that's right. Of course.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
But just kind of depending on where some other equipment might have to go and things, and the final kitchen layout, there might even be, there was previously windows in the kitchen. The door actually used to be on the side here. We're gonna propose to bring it to the back of the building. But there were 2 windows here. This window at one point in time got closed off, but only on the inside, so you could look through the window and see the sheetrock and the
Oh,
2 that somebody had put in, and then there was a window here and one here, and one of them broke and actually got replaced at one point with a totally different material, and I don't know how that ever went, but one of the challenges we have with the hood is we didn't want to run it up through the roof. It previously came out the back of the building up here, so we can't really have any kind of egress or window above or in line with that. So there can't be anything there, but there might be a potential for a window here or one here, but we would obviously want to mirror whatever we do. We wouldn't want to just have one random window somewhere. So we can look at that and tweak that a little bit better. And then obviously incorporate some of these other thoughts and get colors picked. And yeah, I think hopefully by the March meeting, we'll be ready to go. And
lighting and HVAC, we should also talk
Sure.
about.
happy to tell you that right now. We're going to put mini splits in. We know somebody that does that.
I think he was,
And the previous location and the proposed location is actually in the alleyway,
okay.
so no one will see them. They may get mounted to the building just to keep them up off the ground, but they would be mounted in the alleyway and not visible from any point really.
Okay.
And in terms of lighting inside, I think, did I give you a full set of plans now that had the
No, we wouldn't.
You don't need to
Interior
do that.
lighting wouldn't be.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was just, you had said kind of in a summary way, that lighting the sign has to get regularized, so.
Yes,
We
yeah,
want to see that. I think the downward lighting under the portico makes perfect sense and also solves that problem with, birds.
yes.
So just, be thinking about, lighting that is downward. We don't want anything,
Sure. Okay.
I think it's not, foreign,
just like farm lights are good. They might, I mean, if it's gonna be a two-sided sign, it's a little more complicated to do that, but there might. Oh, yeah, potentially. I don't know enough to know, but that's something that probably we should talk about explicitly next week. Or next month, sorry.
I put a note about the sign bracket, the sign lighting, and a sign detail, so we'll
Yeah.
incorporate that.
And I think the HVAC is clear, and that's certainly the right place to put it. You've also got the opportunity to route those lines through the wall.
Mhm.
And avoid all those line hides.
Absolutely, yeah, they're gonna go right in and that won't be on the surface at all. But when you have to retro and do that, it's
Yeah.
the worst.
exactly.
Great. Any other, Michael didn't offer anything. I didn't know if he had any.
Michael, any last thoughts on the project?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
So, okay, that's great. So
Okay,
that's
wonderful.
our plan. We're sort of working from what's already been submitted. We're looking for a couple of tweaks and a couple of specifications. And I
We don't need a public hearing for this or anything. do we? Is that one?
Probably we should, yeah. It's weird with this not having to go to the planning board. I think we better schedule that, and that's gonna involve some notification. Val can guide you on
Okay.
that.
Do you need to take a vote to schedule that for the next meeting, or does that? You have to
Maybe
vote?
we should. Is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for next month? Second. Those in favor?
Bye.
Michael voted as well. So yeah,
Great.
public hearing scheduled. Wonderful. If there's anything we can do or I can do in the meantime.
Absolutely. I'll email the group and,
Yeah, just email us and.
okay, and we'll get that. When do you like the materials typically by Val? Okay. Great, okay. And it's so many neighbors within so many.
Exactly, and then there's
You have
an
a list,
affidavit.
right? They give us a list. Yeah, I just had to do the zoning one for trail link.
Yeah,
so
it's basically the same
Great.
thing. And then there's an affidavit that states that you did it.
I actually, I spent a little bit of time in government myself before all this, so I have some familiarity with it. I didn't have to do that. Everybody else had to do all that stuff. Great. Perfect. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And do we
very
have
much.
any, fees? We don't get any- Okay.
That's the amazing thing.
Autumn likes the fees for the other boards, so I didn't know if we had
Yeah, we've somehow.
avoided that.
free.
After us, you can have all the fees you want. Thanks so much, guys.
All
I
right,
really
thank you
appreciate
very
your time
much.
and input.
Yeah, Thank you. Indeed. See you in a
Bye-bye.
month. Very good, everybody. Sure. Jeremy, are you hearing us?
I am, yes.
Good. Thank you for your patience. I was only off by about an hour and 10 minutes.
Not at all. Thank you so much for squeezing us in here.
Yeah, not at all. No. Good night. So Shane just stepped out to blow his nose, but just for the benefit of my colleagues and Michael, who's on the call from home, can you just run through what the proposed change is? And then I'll follow up.
Yes, and just for context, we are about 6 weeks behind where I would ideally like to be. And I mentioned this when we were there in January and I guess December, that the primary culprit was that we had to redo the entire floor structure in that building, which was a significant process. And we'll be much better off for it. But the priority is that I want to make sure that we're open, hopefully in April, and we should be able to do that. The challenge is that the brick facade that we had discussed previously and you had approved, we may be able to get it done, but the big issue is just having the weather to do it. And given that we are doing, trying to emulate a real brick facade with mortar as opposed to just a stacked brick, the GCs had estimated it's going to take a couple of weeks just to do that brick, and that's assuming that we have no freezing temperatures. So the bottom line is that we unfortunately would be, and by the way, without totally creating heated tent structure on the front, which we don't want to have to go through because that would be a huge process and logistically challenging, very expensive. So anyways, long story short, we looked at the timeline and just said, how can we pick this up a little bit? And the most obvious is to change the facade from the brick that we had discussed back to what I believe was the original preference of the board for stucco. And so everything else, and for the benefit of the board, I had emailed Tom and just had asked, I think on Friday when we had discussed this with the designers and the GCs, any issue with doing this, given that you all had indicated that would be your preference initially. So everything else would remain exactly the same, just replace that brick with stucco.
Great, thank you. That's a really good summary. And colleagues, it seemed to me a very simple tweak, but I'm not in the habit of saying yes for everybody. So I said to Jeremy, lucky thing, we're meeting. I think I wrote you yesterday and said we're meeting tomorrow, and we can squeeze it in. You've represented accurately that our original thought was, when you came in with the idea of tile, we said, what about stucco? And we sort of a month later landed on brick. I'm fine going back to stucco. I think I'm still where I was.
I have no objections.
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to create any more work, but is there any way just to get like a small finished sample, like directly on the building of what it looks like? Because I feel like there's a lot of variation within the world of stucco. There's a lot of different hardening, different types of finishes. Just so we know what it's going to look like, or is there a description or like a type of stucco that you guys are thinking?
I am no stucco expert, but I what we had discussed with both the designers and GC was I guess as if you could call it standard, but a smooth finish, as smooth as possible. Of course, not going to be a mirror or anything like that, but probably similar to what the original character of the Mexicali stucco was there. Definitely smoother, I would say, than Manny's next door, and then finished in the that same white paint, the off-white paint that we had, that we had selected and you had seen previously. I wish I had a better descriptor for the stucco other than to say, I think it'll be as, and apologies for my puppy whining in the background, but it will be as, I think, uneventful as possible. I think what we want to do is just, have a nice white, clean facade and, make the sign pop and the bench.
Are there any stucco applications that you would want to avoid? Like if we sort of drew a line and said, don't go north of that, or don't go.
It's the way you described it, it sounds like you're not trying to do like a rough trowel finish, that I feel like wouldn't necessarily look that great.
That's kind
Sure.
And that is within the realm of stucco. So I just wanted to, I guess, get a sense of what you were thinking. And then there's also you can get like almost like a mirrored kind of plaster finish to a stucco, and on the other extreme, not that, that would be more costly, I would imagine, and that's not necessarily something I feel like you have to do, but I guess, within the realm of, the rough trowel to almost like a Venetian plaster, like what are you guys thinking? And, like in terms of like the paint, like the actual finish, is it going to be like a sheen or like an eggshell or something like really flat? And again, I know that this is just, this is kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but I guess just some kind of understanding of what the finish is going to be for the stucco, and what it's going to look like, what the goals are.
Definitely not the textured and both from me and the designers to the GC, the directive, in advance of meeting with you all tonight, is as smooth as possible. And like you said, we're not going to be able to achieve, we're not going to spend the money to do something like to get that really incredibly shiny, mirror finish, and nor would the paint be shiny like that either. Definitely much more of an eggshell, something that has a tiny bit of sheen, but not a gloss or anything like that. The intention would just to, again, similar to the brick and doing an aged brick, was to give it a character of something that had, is kind of classic and had been there for a little while. So something closer to plaster than to like a rough finish stucco, like a troweled stucco, like you said.
Jeremy, would the change to stucco result in any changes to your sign?
No, it'll still be painted it would be painted on the stucco. It was going to be painted on the brick, hand painted.
My recollection of what's next to Kelly Blue, I would sort of liken to like 60 grit sandpaper. It's got, sort of a sandy surface, so it's not that mirrored plastery thing, and it's definitely not troweled out. I'm glad you raised